After hearing what Rusbed said, he also claims that he feels comfortable. However, the woman grabs him by the neck, which leads the hero to ask her to be careful. She then turns around, slowly moving away from the couch, and says she's feeling a bit dizzy, which prevents her from standing properly. Using this strategy, she manages to enter Lepping's room. Looking around, she comments that his room is quite elegant. Later, she locates her target and starts heading toward it, repeating that she's very dizzy and, for that reason, cannot be polite. The man asks her to wait, but the woman thinks she is going to throw herself onto the bed and drag him along with her. At that moment, she lets herself fall. However, Lepping skillfully grabs a chair and throws it toward Rusbed, while saying he really can't do it because he promised something to Elizabeth. Thus, Rusbed ends up sitting on the chair instead of landing on the bed. Then, the chair starts moving, returning to where Lepping was, giving the impression of being a boomerang. When the chair returns, it makes the woman's head hit the table, and also causes the books on the shelf to start trembling. At that moment, Lepping apologizes and explains that the chair is ergonomic, so comfortable that one can rest perfectly on it. Rusbed thinks she was close to achieving her goal and comments that the chair is good. However, the trembling books end up falling on her head, burying her under a pile of them. He starts picking up the books while apologizing, explaining that they are books and notes he had organized according to his tastes when he lived alone to pass the time. She even mentions that he covered each one and didn't expect them to gather dust on the shelf for so long. He confesses they make him feel nostalgic. However, Rusbed, annoyed, calls him insensitive and compares him to a rock. Despite this, she reflects on what he said, as he mentioned that the books reflect his preferences. So she stands up and asks Lepping if she can take a look at them. He nods and mentions that if she doesn't get bored, he also wants to revisit them. Rusbed reflects that, although her strength is unfathomable, the fact that she can control her intimate preferences with such precision shows that even the hardest stone can be broken. She picks a book, spins around on the chair, and asks him to check it, stating that she's chosen this one specifically. Lepping approaches, a moment the woman takes advantage of to use her fatal attraction skill. She deeply enchants him, sending him into a dream where he appears ringing the doorbell of a house. There, Rusbed greets him and says he's finally arrived. Lepping, dressed in a plumber's uniform, responds enthusiastically, "Lepping Professional Maintenance is here. Our motto is customer first and sincere service." Then, he asks how he can help her. The woman explains that her bathroom shower suddenly stopped working and asks him to take a look. Lepping gets to work. Meanwhile, Rusbed, holding the shower in her hands, explains that suddenly there's no water and she hasn't been able to bathe. Lepping assures her it's just a small problem and that he'll fix it right away. Then, he adjusts a screw, causing water to spray out, soaking Rusbed completely. Rusbed comments, while trying to cover herself, that she is getting completely soaked, struggling futilely to prevent her clothes from becoming even wetter under the relentless downpour. Fortunately for her, Lepping acts quickly and shuts off the water valve, stopping the flow before Rusbed ends up taking a fully clothed bath. The relief is evident, although the awkwardness of the moment still lingers. After solving the problem, Lepping addresses his esteemed client with a calm voice, announcing that the service has been completed and that he is about to leave. However, the woman, with an intense gaze and a gesture full of seduction, stops him. Smiling slightly, she asks if he is leaving so soon. Then, in a provocative tone, she comments that he has an impossible-to-ignore temptation right in front of him, questioning whether he doesn't feel the desire to take a closer look. Leping, caught up in the tension of the moment, can't help but sincerely confess that indeed, there is an extreme temptation before his eyes. Slowly, he begins to approach, keeping his gaze fixed on the woman's eyes, as he timidly asks if he really has her permission to look, and perhaps touch. The woman, with a smile brimming with lust, answers without hesitation. She assures him that yes, he has complete freedom to do whatever he wants. Both looking and touching are allowed, she declares while watching him with eyes full of desire, making it clear that she grants him total trust and consent. It is then that Leping runs toward a corner filled with tools, expressing his gratitude for the opportunity he has been given. The man feels even more motivated as he picks up one of the tools, admiring the Guanglun 3000 series electric drill. "The power of its motor is amazing!" he exclaims, marveling at the quality of the equipment. Rusbed, with a look of disbelief, asks what all this is about and why something so irrelevant has suddenly appeared in the middle of the situation. Once out of the illusion, the hero picks up a book titled The Repairman's Last Temptation. He explains that he created that notebook when he arrived at the place, using it as a method to motivate himself to recover all his lost tools. He confesses with a nostalgic smile that now, upon reading it, he realizes that not only did he manage to gather all his tools, but he also improved them, advancing their technology several generations beyond what he had imagined. "Time flies!" he exclaims, as if the passage of years had not taken. The woman, visibly angry, reflects disdainfully on whether he truly believes that what he calls extreme temptation is nothing more than the strange objects he refers to. However, she doesn't give up and declares that she made a mistake in choosing that book. She acknowledges her error, but assures him that this time she will use another book, one that won't be so direct. Instead of confronting him overtly, she will employ a subtler approach, infiltrating with charm and precision according to his tastes. With that decision made, she carefully selects the book titled Reflections on Wellness. She activates her magical powers over the object, filling it with a particular energy, and uses it to send Leping into a newly crafted illusion. In this new scene, Rusbed becomes an elegant client visiting a doctor in a refined office. She enters the office with a calm demeanor and greets the doctor with a gentle smile. She remarks in a melodic voice that it has been a while, breaking the silence of the room. The man, kind and professional in appearance, greets her courteously, returning the gesture. He also welcomes her to the Leping Healthcare Center, inviting her to take a seat. Then, with genuine interest, he asks where she feels discomfort. Rusbed, with delicate movements, sits in the chair before him. Slowly and almost theatrically, she explains that she feels exhausted, and her entire body seems tired. She wonders if he could examine her. As she says this, she gracefully extends her wrist, offering her hand for him to take her pulse. Without hesitation, the doctor takes her wrist firmly yet gently and begins to feel the beats of her heart, focusing with a mix of professionalism and curiosity. Leping, after a brief analysis, concludes that the woman's pulse is weak and slow. Additionally, he senses a notable warmth in the palms of her hands. With calmness, he explains that it's a case of yin kidney deficiency, accompanied by an accumulation of impurities and symptoms related to an excess of indulgence. Intrigued, the woman asks what he means by excess of indulgence, and without hesitation requests his help to treat her condition. With a hopeful tone, she adds that, perhaps with the right treatment, she could finally feel satisfied and find relief. Hearing this, Leping listens attentively and proceeds to show her something that quickly changes the woman's expression. It is a small package that he holds in his hands. The doctor patiently explains that it contains an herbal medicine that must be prepared carefully. The herbs should be boiled in 3 bowls of water until the liquid is reduced to 1, and then the infusion should be taken once a day. Confidently, he assures her that if she follows this treatment to the letter, she will fully recover. The harpy, cunning and manipulative, begins to argue that she cannot bear the taste of the medicine. With an apparently innocent tone, she asks if he knows of any alternative treatments, suggesting, for example, massages. The doctor, intrigued, asks if she is referring to the massage technique used to realign bones. Additionally, he comments that this technique is much more exciting than simply taking the medicine. Looking at her with a professional air, he adds that if she is really sure about wanting to try this alternative, he asks her to unbutton her clothing slightly. Rusebed wastes no time and quickly complies. While doing so, she replies that if this technique is as exciting as he suggests, she will undoubtedly like it much more than the medicine. As she slightly unbuttons her shirt, she reflects to herself that this time the interaction has flowed quite naturally and that both seem to have quickly entered the dynamic of the treatment. It is then that Leping, with a calm demeanor, comments that unbuttoning the top button is sufficient. With delicate movements, he places one hand on Rusebed's neck and the other on her shoulder, preparing to continue with the... By the way, she mentions that she will leave the rest in his hands, and she did not expect him to be so charming and professional. However, suddenly, he makes a precise movement that causes a cracking sound in the woman's neck, who immediately lets out a muffled cry of pain and surprise. Immediately afterward, he positions his thumbs precisely on her back and begins to make circular motions, which seem to resonate deeply within Rusebed's inner bones, as if reaching the most hidden layers of her being. The technique he uses provokes in her such an intense and overwhelming sensation that she cannot help but let out a faint sound from her mouth, a mix of relief and bewilderment. But the doctor doesn't stop there. With an air of concentration, he takes Rusebed's head in his hands and in a calm yet firm tone, asks her to hold on. He explains that if she can endure what comes next, all the impurities lodged in her body will be completely eliminated. At that moment, he executes a masterful technique that unleashes a thunderous sound, almost as if Rusebed's body were releasing something deeply rooted within her. Once the treatment is finished, Leping, with a calm expression and professional curiosity, asks her how she feels. He wonders if her body feels lighter and adds if she can now notice the difference after all the tensions have disappeared. Rusebed, amazed by the intense emotion she experienced, responds enthusiastically that, yes, indeed. At that moment, she feels her entire body becoming much lighter, as if an invisible burden had suddenly vanished. At the same time, she cannot help but reflect on the lightness that invades her, an incredibly liberating sensation that fills her with a strange euphoria. The joy of that experience seems almost indescribable, as if it connects her to something beyond the physical. However, that feeling of ecstasy is abruptly interrupted when an unexpected sound resonates in the air. To her horror, she discovers that her head has been separated from her body in an inexplicable manner. Instead of succumbing to death, as would be expected, Rusebed reacts with a cry of surprise, not because of the pain, but because of what her own eyes are showing her. The impact of the situation is so unreal that, for a moment, she cannot process what is happening, while a mix of astonishment and bewilderment is reflected on her face. And with that, we've reached the end of this week's chapter. If you made it all the way to the end, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this chapter in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe so our community can keep growing and we can reach more fans like you. See you in the next video. In the meantime, if you're from the near future, I'll leave you the next chapter and a comic you're sure to enjoy. Thank you for being part of this adventure.